Hello, everybody, and welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vandergans, founder of Enso Coaching and Consulting, and this is officially the season 2 closer with our amazing coaches.
Finale.
The finale.
Oh, my favorite.
I was going to do it.
That's my favorite.
Kathleen, Libby, Adam, they're all
Yes.
here, and we're just here. We're going to chat it up. We were just talking about, what do we talk about? Who knows? You know,
We're about to see.
We're about to see, but I never feel like there's an absence of things for us to talk about.
Well, and it's so much the spirit of as you are that it's like we're present, we are ready, we are
That's right.
curious.
That's right. You know, and I think one of the things that we were just talking about was how grateful we are for the people who have been listening. You know, it was kind of an interesting endeavor. You know, Adam and I, we kind of sat around a table at, where were we? What pizza place was that? It was so delicious.
Oh, Pine House.
We were at Pine
Shout
House.
out, Pint House.
Shout out to
Sponsor
Pine
us.
House. Yeah, sponsor us.
Shout
Send us
house.
some pizzas
Shout
and some
out.
pretzels.
Yeah.
Pine House Pizza, having a conversation about how we were wanting to talk about what we were doing as a coaching organization. And Adam had the brilliant idea of let's do a podcast.
I think it was Dave.
Dave Hawks, the genius.
Shout out, Dave Hawks.
Dave
I'm just
Hawks.
going to shout out Phil today.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
clearly.
Thank you.
I've
Libby.
taken that
Libby,
as
shout
my
out.
role. Thank you.
I do feel like you're a good hype man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If anybody.
Agreed.
I try to be.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah. You and Kathleen.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
Yes, hype people.
I think
Get it.
everyone's doing great in this room. Everyone
Yeah.
looks good, sounds
Everyone
good.
is on point today. Mhm.
Are we the D-hype people? You and me?
Yeah, you and me. We're just like, we
Dehyper.
balance
Great.
Pop
That's
and
great.
move
Great.
in those balloons.
Guys. We'll send you some more information about that you were hyping
We'll
things up
send
around.
feedback
Yeah, we'll
later.
send you
Thank you.
some data. But Dave Hawks, man, came up with this great idea of us doing a podcast, and we kind of we were like, oh, that's kind of interesting, and we like to talk and we have things to say,
Dude,
and
both of those things are
you
true.
know, yeah, and it's been a journey, and we have amazing partners here at Record ATX too. We have to
Yes.
shout our buddies out
Awesome.
too, because they
They're
do
the
such a
best.
wonderful job. But
Absolutely.
but it's been so fun these last 2 seasons, and we had kind of talked initially about, do we do this 1 season? Do we do this 2 seasons? Let's just see how it goes. And our little listener group is growing.
I know.
It is.
Thank you, listeners.
Yes.
Thank you. And so I think we will
Keep on going.
keep on
We
going.
are going to
We'll
be
do a
like
little season
Grey's
3.
Anatomy. We're going to
Oh,
yes.
That's right.
That's right. You're going to see different
Hopefully.
iterations of we just
Yes.
Yeah.
replace
cast.
Leslie with someone that kind of looks like her and just don't say anything.
Yes.
It'll be great.
I also just feel like listeners choose me. What is that line?
Choose me.
That's
Yes.
right.
Oh, that'll
Yeah.
be so good. Hopefully somebody will call us if we start to jump the shark.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
they'll be like, get out of here. You guys are done. I don't know. I mean, I think we have pretty honest.
Yeah, we have
I
good
think
honest
so.
listeners. Yeah, somebody will send us a DM.
Yeah.
Be like, time
Guys,
to
you're
cut
done.
it short.
You're done.
So anyway, it's been such a fun journey, and we've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of really amazing humans, and
Truly.
even just people that we want to continue having
Yes.
conversations with.
100%. That's what I was thinking in terms of we're back for season 2. I'm going to be back for season 3, and how much of that is indicative of who's coming on.
Yeah.
And just all these amazing people out there who, as we talk about, you see a gap and you find a way to fill it and be creative about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who wants to be a guest on the As You Are podcast, you got some things to say. Give us a call. Libby is not going to hide that.
I
one
don't
up.
know. I'm not going to stand behind that one. I don't know that anyone. But,
Well, we will put you through the Libby filter.
That's right.
However,
yeah,
we do welcome inquiries.
We do.
Yes.
sure.
Well, and don't
You can inquire.
Yes, but haven't we had some people inquire as well?
Yeah, we've had
Yeah.
had a couple of people
Yeah.
raise their
Yeah.
hand and say, I'm
I got a
interested.
story
So-
to tell. Yeah.
Yeah. So it should be fun.
That's how we get to meet the movers and shakers.
That's right. Love somebody who sticks their hands up.
Yes. Well,
Put my hands up.
there's a good save.
Yeah. There it is.
Can only
Thank God
do 2
someone's here
seconds
to
of
do
it.
it.
Oh my
And those DMs are flooding in
Yeah.
now. Jump in the shark. Jump in the shark. Maybe that needs to
Too
be the
much,
title
Leslie.
of season
Turn it around.
3. Season 3.
Being a shark.
Forward.
Oh, it's so good.
We do have a good time.
Oh, so
Who wouldn't
so
want to be
amazing.
here? with-
Yes.
Seriously.
But I'm just like such the like, let's make a connection, but like we have a good time. And that's also a reason to keep doing it. And like
It
we have
is.
such a good time doing what we do as coaches and working with
Yeah.
the people that
Yeah.
we do that it's like, of course we keep coming back.
I mean, and talking about what we talk about, I mean, there's a reason why we're all here. You know,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
passionate.
There is. Well, and I always feel like I leave, having learned so much or having had new perspectives added to the crayon box,
100%.
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
which is special. Because I think
is.
that that's not true of every conversation that we
Mm-mm.
have,
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many little tidbits that we can continue to take away
Mhm.
from all of these
Mhm.
conversations and from each other.
Mhm.
And, and I think like part of this evolution and part of all of these conversations is we're also continuing to evolve
Mhm.
and grow and
Yeah.
learn and, take in new things and new ways of thinking and new ways of being while, having these conversations. And
That's something I was actually thinking about on the way over here is just how different it is to, I mean, every day that I talk with a client, I learn something new. And even though, technically they're coming to me for coaching and helping, through whatever the situation is, but I'm constantly learning from them and, things that they have to say, what their story has been. So that has been something that I love is just no day is really the same because
So
no
true.
person is ever in the same place.
Yeah.
And those conversations and it's just been really great and really eye-opening.
Yeah. Okay, so what's one
Mm.
thing that you feel like you've really learned or were able to take away from your client? A client, any
Mm.
client.
Something that I've been able to take away from a client, I think I would say one of the biggest things, honestly. So I have a client that she's a mom and she was just telling me a little bit about how she organizes her day and how she structures stuff. And I was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. Let me just go ahead and copy that. But I mean, I think that there was just and then it became a conversation more of sharing back and forth of, here's kind of what I've experienced, here's what she's experienced, and here's what she does, and here's what I do. And then based off of that conversation, I took away some pointers on that's a great way to structure some of like the after school things and the things that are really hard to
Mhm.
keep up with. And that would probably help me to implement it in my life. And then, there were also questions that I asked her and things that I talked to her about that she was like, that's a great point. And
Mhm.
that's something that I can implement as well. So I do think, and even in the realm of, I've been recruiting for 13 years or something like that, and have looked at a million resumes, but still sometimes there are things where I'm like, oh, I like the way you phrased that,
Mhm.
or that's not anything, I wouldn't have thought of that before. And as we're, dissecting and putting something together, I'm here for it. Like if you have better ways to describe something than I do, let's do it. And will absolutely steal it and use it later.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, there are so many things that I haven't seen before, or like, just are eye-opening, and I love just being able to experience that, with my clients.
Yeah. It's so interesting. John VG and I were talking about this the other day. John VG is my husband.
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, just a random.
He's a random guy
Yeah.
who I use his last 2 initials. But we were actually talking about the importance of, in any kind of relationship, but I think this really applies to a coaching relationship, is the necessity for both parties to be extremely humble. I say humble, but I'm thinking about it in the context of humility. So that there can be this like dance or this like tango of like interesting, concepts might be kind consistent throughout, like all of the things that we're doing or the conversations that we're having, but the nuances of the human and the way that they engage, perceive things, participate might change. And so this like need for us to, as coaches, to be really open and curious and humble around what we know and what we maybe don't know that we don't know, so that those conversations can be more like a tango.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it, and not. I don't ever assume that I know more, or that I'm right, and this is what I'm going to. Absolutely not. There's curiosity.
Yeah,
always, right? And it's that like you really don't know what the person is going to say next. And I think that some of the humility then that has to come in is it's like you could really say anything, and just being present enough to roll with whatever it is you're saying.
Totally. There's like this, it's such a fine line in these relationships around like preparation and being prepared and reviewing notes and still being very, very open to whatever comes at you, which is like, it's a hard thing, I think, I would consider myself a type A person.
I'll go with that. I'll give you a
type AA. A plus, triple A.
A type A personality, when you want to have more control over like what's going to happen and what's kind of coming at you, to really kind of pull back on some of those things is a practice in and of itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Adam, what about you? Like, what do you feel like? What's one of the more recent things?
Well, it's interesting as a segue because you just said the word practice. And as Libby was talking about her, I was doing what you're not supposed to do, and I was not actively listening. I was thinking about what I would say if I were asked that.
Thank you for being humble enough to.
That's right. No, but I was thinking about how it's very interesting that in the music world, which, I come from the vocal coaching world with a lot of musicians, and then also, of course, with the work that we do with presence and speaking and public speaking. But what comes around every so often for me is the reminder of how much practice really is critical to exponential growth. So it's very interesting because, different people come in for singing voice work, for example, to the studio with very different parameters around their lives, different amounts of time that they have to dedicate, different amounts of time that they want to dedicate relative to what their goals are. And so what's interesting to me is sometimes you will get that individual who is just so in it to win it that they also perhaps have a life that can integrate with their in it to win itness from a scheduling perspective, that they're able to really put in this very dedicated, very disciplined practice time. I mean, I remember in undergrad, they would tell us, shoot for about 3 hours a day of practice. And, for people who are out of school and are working one or more jobs and or have families and or, are trying to fit in a performing career, among other things, that's usually just not tenable for those folks. But it is interesting to see the people for whom consistent practice, dedicated and disciplined practice is an option, just how much more exponential the growth tends to be.
Wow.
And I think that what I keep coming back to is attempting to remember to be proactive in helping clients to, number one, discern perhaps strategies for themselves as to how to schedule that time. Like a lot of people, for example, because it may not be able to be number one on the priority list, even if they want it to be practice time, rehearsal time, do you schedule that in your calendar for a specific time? And a lot of folks don't even think about setting aside a specific time like they would any other appointment. And that alone is helpful for a lot of people. But then once you're actually in that moment of practice time that you have dedicated, what do I do? I think that's a huge one. I think a lot of people also can set aside the time and do set aside the time to practice. But then when they get into that moment, perhaps they just sing through the songs over and over and over again and aren't truly practicing moments. And so I think that all is analogous to the kind of work that we do as well, specifically public speaking, certainly, but any kind of, practice needs to be practiced. And I think that for me, it's something that will come around every once in a while when I get somebody who really is able to dedicate that time and the resource of time and finances and all of those sorts of things to really dedicated, disciplined practice every day. It's pretty amazing what that can do. And so I think helping people to approach where they might be at any given time on that spectrum on their journey and help them to maximize what it is that they can do. That is my learning for this session.
So good.
I think that's so cool too, because, I just think of, I have clients that'll come to me and, they'll say, I've been applying to hundreds of jobs. I've been on LinkedIn. I don't like LinkedIn. I've done this and this and this. And I'm like, okay. And one of the first things we do is I'm like, what are you actually doing on LinkedIn? What jobs are you actually applying for? How are you applying for them? Walk me through your process. And most of the time we find, they're kind of scrolling on LinkedIn, not really doing a lot as far as networking goes, not really utilizing it to its full benefits. And then as far as applying for jobs go, they're not being specific about their applications. They're just kind of throwing stuff out there. So it's very interesting, just kind of, that is definitely a theme that I know that, we've all kind of talked about and have seen, between clients, and just kind of something that we see in everyone is this, when you're trying to do something that seems hard, dedicating that amount of time and structuring it and having an actual strategy.
Leaning into it.
And leaning in, right. Yeah. And what a difference it makes.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I think with that strategy piece, right, like if I were to hear, and I'm doing something right now where it's like, I'm dedicating 3 hours a day to this artistic endeavor, how it is like, oh my God, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But that notion for those out there, and like, this is definitely me a lot of the time, that's like, I don't know that I have the mental bandwidth or like the physical time bandwidth to do that, to like not have that stop you still from like having any amount of dedicated time. And I think to this point, like being super intentional about it. It's not just customizing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you can, if you don't have the 3 hours, but you do have an hour, how are you still using that in the most efficient way?
Yeah. I have a client that it's 10 minutes.
Yeah,
10 minutes a day.
Sure.
That's, where he is right now. And that's what we can get. And we can get a good solid 10 minutes out of him.
Yeah.
I think I've shared this with you, Leslie. There's like a nice little formula picture that is this like, it's looking at an equation where it's like, 1 to the no degree and it equals 1. But if you do 1 to the like 0.01 degree over a period of time, you just see what that number becomes.
Sure.
So it truly is like any effort is infinitely better than no effort.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
Love that. Well, it's interesting, Adam, as you were talking, something that kind of came up for me was like, how do we take what you just learned about what you need to do for your clients and apply it for ourselves in us becoming better coaches, or us becoming better at asking questions or engaging in a certain way, or reading, or, kind of investing in our own self-development? Because the reality of the situation is that, we owe that to our clients. Like we owe that to the relationships that we have or the partnerships that we have if we're not constantly focusing on what does my practice look like in this work. At some point I will become obsolete. It's it's kind of interesting. We're working with I have like 8 thoughts in my head right now.
I can see them happening.
But we have a client who and it's actually a partnership, which we can talk a little bit about.
Yes,
Kathleen
I
kind of
love
brought that up a little bit.
partnerships.
It's a really great partnership, and they're very dedicated right now to what is AI going to look like in the future. And I know Libby, strangely enough, is the one on this team who's like the AI guru. I don't know, like,
well, guys,
and I know Adam uses AI, and I
call
think
this the tech couch.
Yes,
right.
We are tech
we're
forward.
here for
Right.
tech talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Tech talk.
Tech talks.
But so one of the things that I've been trying to do or attempting to do is dedicating just a little bit of time every day, like playing around with ChatGPT and like other tools that are out there, and just like trying to understand like what does it look like in a coaching relationship, or how could some of this stuff start to disrupt the coaching industry, because it's going to happen at some point. And so if we're not constantly thinking about that, but also as a coach, I want to be equipped with information so that as our clients that we're working with who are kind of engaging in this endeavor, we're at least somewhat knowledgeable about, where they're going. And I think the other thing, Adam, that was coming up for me too is like even in, just preparing for a call or preparing for a conversation, the capacity and the capability of being able to be more present because you spent a little bit of time prior to making sure that you were clear on where the client was prior to, and what are the things that we kind of talked about, and what are the things that we asked them to work on, and what are the overlying themes, allows for so much more presence and so much more of that, kind of, yeah.
Well, it's a different kind of curiosity. I feel like even as you're saying this, where it's like there's so much important context of what conversations have already been. And so like we set up this foundation, you prepare for it so that it sets you up for a curiosity of like, how did that conversation go versus like, who's Bob? When it's like we talked about Bob last time.
100%, right? And it just gets us into the mode or the modality of like what where did we leave this off? What are like how do I frame certain questions in a way that might evoke some thought or some, new ways of thinking or new ways of being? And again, like the times where I have the minute to actually think that through and what those coaching calls look like versus the times where I'm not dedicating, the energy and the patience and all that stuff, it makes a huge difference. And so I don't know. Thank you for sharing that, because it was a very little eye-opening for
everything.
Yours truly over here.
It's eye-opening to me too when somebody comes in, and as I said, is able to do that. I think everybody would like to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But is able to do it, and you're like, wow, okay, so it's a good reminder to see, really lean into helping people discern where that can be. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 3 hours in a day.
Exactly. But learning is bottom line.
Yeah,
like
bottom line.
So freaking important.
Yep.
Right.
What about you, Kathleen?
Yeah.
What have you learned, Dorothy?
I know, Dorothy. I've never actually seen that movie. But I've seen The Wiz.
Okay.
Oh,
Anyway,
wow. Okay.
We're talking Wizard of Oz in case if there's other out there who haven't seen it too. I know the references. I've seen the ruby slippers.
Wow.
Little Shop of Horrors was the musical movie I grew up
Fair.
with, which explains a lot
yeah.
about me. I
I
feel
like
like.
that. That's fine.
Yeah, I was like, Audrey was my Dorothy.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that. That does a lot.
What have you learned, Audrey?
yeah. Well, listen,
Don't
I
feed
would
the
love to
plant.
play that part. Yes, don't feed the plant. What I've learned, though, I think in coming back to being surprised is that openness to like what direction people are wanting to go, whether it's like more broad and like, oh, bigger dreams versus like, actually, I really want to focus in on one smaller part. So like I have a client who is like growing their business and is doing great. And I thought that the conversation was going to go to like, and now I'm going to book this gig and I'm going to book this one and then this one. But what instead happened is they were like, actually, I really think I need to wake up at 6 a.m. every day so I can focus on my home life. And it was like, oh, cool. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So interested to hear that, like, that is where you want to focus our attention on next, that it's, and like those things are of course connected, and that's, you know, part of the fun. We are a whole human, but where I was anticipating it being, where do I land this big client? It really became like, how can I be more present for my family? So I feel like that's a fun reminder of like, you know, expanding out is sometimes going small.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes.
It's also just good when it's like everyone struggles with the same type of stuff. And that's always one thing that I try to, you know, I have, you know, clients that are looking for a job, and that's not the most awesome place to be. Sometimes it's very stressful depending on your circumstances, but reassuring them that like it's not just you.
Right.
Like it's not just you. There are lots of people that are having the same struggles, and you know, this is what we can do to help. But I think sometimes just that, bringing in that feeling of you're not alone and other people are struggling with this too, can be really helpful.
Totally. And all of this is making me think too that we're talking about a demographic who's already reaching out and seeking help and seeking to grow in this way.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone could benefit from it. And who we are talking about are the people taking those steps.
Yeah. Which I also love too. I mean, someone is like, I need help. I can't. This is a lot, and I want someone to help me along the way. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah,
Leslie?
you.
Yeah, Leslie.
What you been learning over there?
I mean, I would say two things. I think the to go with the theme, this like concept of humility, like just is really important, because I think that the minute that we start to feel like, okay, we got this, like our clients are like, I'm coaching good, I'm asking good questions, and they're growing and things are great. It's just like the minute that we put our foot off of the like internal gas of like, we can continue to support and engage and love on our clients, and that's great, but there always has to be that moment of like, okay, what else? Like, how else do I need to like, how else do I need to continue to grow myself so that way we can continue to pour into these people in the right way? And like, it's never there's no end.
You're not
like
done.
There's no, there's no goal, and just maintaining some level of humility in every single relationship and every single conversation is super, super critical. I would say that's the first thing. Would you guys agree with that?
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this goes to something Libby was saying too, just pointing with my foot.
Point. Yeah. Her over there.
Yes. In terms of like, what do you leave the call with? And there are those pieces of like, oh, that's really cool how to structure the day. And there are those pieces of, well, I could have asked this question in another way.
Yeah.
Or like, what is my own understanding of how that conversation went? What brought it to that direction? Where would I want to take it next?
Yeah.
That it's like that time to prep beforehand and the time to decompress afterwards.
And manically write notes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You should see my
well,
notes.
and stop and ask the question of like, okay, well, is that, did that feel like a good coaching call? And like, what do I need to pivot? And what do I need to do next time to try to make this relationship better, stronger, help them, grow in the way that they want to? Because I do think at times, you can be in the hustle of like, next, and not take that time. Yeah. The second thing that has come up is the more we continue to engage with these clients and these partners and these people, the more there are these like consistent threads. And, like Libby, like you kind of just mentioned, like there people are dealing with kind of the same stuff. Like there's a lot of like themes and there's a lot of stuff. And I feel like the more we're in this work, the more opportunities there are for us to support our clients with frameworks.
Totally.
I love that word.
Yeah. Libby just made fun of me before we got on this episode about using the word framework, but I'm going to use it again because I do think it's really
important.
helpful.
It's important. Fine. Yeah.
But the concept is like the advantage that I think is we as coaches have is that and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I know we have, is that we're looking at a multitude of different people in a multitude of different scenarios dealing with the same issues. And so how do we continue to support our clients with ways to, and again, it's never one size fits all, but it is at least here are like 7 things that I've seen work. So let's go give those things
let's try on those hats.
Let's try on those hats.
Yeah.
Like I can guarantee you that you've got a lot of like very specific tactics on how you want to prep and support somebody as they're finding a new job. I can guarantee you have like 80 different tools in your pocket on helping somebody structure what they need to structure vocally.
83, actually.
Interesting. The preciseness, Adam. I do
I believe
appreciate it. And like similarly, like some of the things that I'm starting to see are like, what are the frameworks that we need to use in leadership? What are the frameworks we need to use in business? What are the frameworks we need to use in imposter syndrome? What are the frameworks we need to use in women in leadership? And I'm sure you're starting to kind of see,
absolutely,
major patterns. And so, that's the other piece that I get really excited about is as we continue to grow and continue to mature as an organization, we're going to be creating these like frameworks to be like, oh, you are an executive with imposter syndrome. We got like 8 things that have been proven to help service somebody in some way, shape, or form, right?
Even though I don't like that you used frameworks, I will say there is within using a framework, I do think that it allows more freedom and customization of what the solution or the tactic looks like, right? So I do think that, deciding, are you going to go left or right? Okay, now that we know that, then that allows you to, really customize it to what they need and meet them where they are.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, I'm just hopping in.
Yeah,
I think
on it.
like the spirit of we're staying curious and we're staying with that humility is that like we're also then aware of it while we are coming in with this framework. If it's not working, we pivot to something else.
Yeah.
So it's not like this is the framework, we're seeing it to completion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I will say like for all the time, I tell my clients, we'll start on, start on their resume. We'll do stuff that are, best practices, fix whatever needs to be fixed. And I tell them, we're going to test this version out for like a week or so. You're going to send X amount of applications in. If you're not getting anything, we're going to go back and we're going to see what else we need to do. We're going to be in real time, fixing things. We're not just going to leave it out there and sorry, this is the best we can do. That is it. This is a great resume and goodbye. Yeah. But to partner with them in adjustments in, there isn't a fix this word and your resume is going to automatically be gold standard, right? Yeah. So sometimes it takes, it's something different for everyone. It can be a networking issue. It can be a resume. It can be, and all of that is stuff that, we work on and it really just depends on the person.
Yeah. And I mean, and just like you said, like even a framework for like, I'm uncomfortable with networking, like supporting somebody through that uncomfort is something that we do on a regular basis. And so like, what is a methodology?
Theme,
totally.
That is like a huge,
I mean,
people do not, I know it's hard because I don't love it.
I mean, Kathleen's really good
at networking.
I don't love it. And I'm like I like people-ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't love networking. But I do think that is one thing that I've gotten better at through coaching.
Networker, are you?
Yeah.
What do you love about networking?
Yeah.
Well, because I think people's stories.
Yeah.
I think, well, going back to Dave Hawks and our business, really, when we were saying, why does the world need another like kind of branding? Now, we do specifically work with artists and creatives, but besides that, why does the world need some other two people doing content and doing strategy and things like that? Well, it became the fact that so many people would say to us, oh, social media is so gross. And we're
Also common. Yeah.
well, and we both are kind of like, yes, social media is kind of so gross. However, can you still be authentic? Can you still not feel like you're selling your soul and still use social in a certain way? And then how can we help people to do that? And so I think that it's very interesting because some of the people that in my work in the theater world, I have met initially through networking from a professional standpoint that we're, hey, I'm going to be in New York. I find your work interesting. Do you want to meet up, et cetera, or that people have reached out to me for that same reason. I'm going to be in Austin. I find your work interesting, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting how some of my closest friendships have ended up coming from those. But I think that the thing is, so often we view networking as something that you do when you need something, not something that you do to meet other people that you might truly just have shared interests
might have often. Yes.
With. Yeah, and so it was really, and particularly for me anyway, it was really during the pandemic that I was like, there are some of these people whose work we've maybe said hello to each other for 2 seconds at, some event or at some show or at something or whatever, or have mutual friends. And we've just never, met. And so everybody kind of had time. So, it's just interesting how many true friends I've made through what was initially sort of but there was always a shared interest. And I think that is why I love networking, because I don't always love it when I have to reach out to this person because I need a thing.
Yeah.
That I don't always love. But if it can, and again, it's putting aside the time to do that.
Totally.
And that's the thing that Dave and I always talk about, that, and he, again, to give him credit for this, he always talks about, how one of the interesting things about social media is that you ostensibly have the ability to connect directly with almost everyone. Now, whether that person connects back to you, engages and all of that, but sometimes they do. And so there is this opportunity.
Right.
But again, what's it really for? And I think that when that is something that is authentic and true, and you're not necessarily expecting something out of it, beyond getting to know someone, that is special. So that's why I love it.
Love that.
It's like so beautifully said, and like right on with that sentiment. And the like 2 little pieces I'd add to that is the one, I love it when people reach out to me. And I've also been told by others that like, I love that you reached out to me, that it's like the feedback you get in it, it's like people want this.
Yes.
People want that connection. And I think taking away that like what to me can sometimes feel like an ick factor of like, I need this thing, so I'm reaching out to you, but that like genuine interest. I want to get to know you. I see that you're doing this. I think that's so cool. Like I know there are people out there who don't want to hear that, but for the most part, I think people would feel
welcome.
It's welcomed. So I think that is part of the fun of then meeting people, having these genuine connections. The other thing I'd add that I enjoy is the follow-up. So it is that like I had a networking thing this morning with someone, and I intend to send an email that says, hey, it was so great meeting with you. Keep me updated. I'm going to follow you, see what's going on. But if nothing else, it was just so nice meeting. So just those things that like, because in the same way that people are open and welcome that initial outreach, I think people really also appreciate that follow-up. That is just that like,
extra.
Just because we all want to feel, again, most of us, I think, want to feel seen and appreciated. And it's so easy at the end of the day to send a text that's like, hey, it really was great meeting you.
Yeah.
That makes me feel better about networking.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I know.
Well, this is a
I actually
framework.
do
It's a framework.
I will say that I do think through coaching, it has become easier because having this baseline of questions to ask and active listening rather than your surface, like,
Well, it's because the uncomfort is selfish, right? And
Mhm.
what I'm hearing the two of these people say, these geniuses
Yeah.
here, is that it is really about like pouring into somebody else. And so like the selfish uncomfort is what keeps, I think, somebody like me from, I say somebody like me. It's me, guys. Keeps me from being super comfortable with the networking side of things. But like, I can have conversations with people, and I love learning about
I do
people, and
too,
I love
yeah.
engaging.
I do too.
So it's like that. It's just, it is a mindset shift
Yeah.
around like, how do you like really pour into others and be curious about what they're doing and what they have to offer versus being like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable when I go up to them. Like it's like high school or like junior high school and like asking to sit at the kids' table, which is like a weird, something that comes up, right? Versus
school dance.
yeah, the school dance, wallflower.
Yeah.
Is anyone going to ask me to dance?
Were you the wallflower though?
Never.
Never.
You know
Never.
this.
I have a hard time believing that was actually your life. But I do think, and that is a conversation I have with my clients often is, this, who do I network with? And I'm like, everyone. Like,
Who do you find interesting?
you really don't know when. And yes, maybe you're trying to get a new job. And yes, maybe it makes sense to network with people in your industry, but it doesn't have to be, I'm contacting Leslie because I want a job. I could be contacting Leslie and saying, hey, Leslie, I really, I was kind of looking at the trajectory of your career. I really think you've worked for some cool companies. Can we grab coffee and can you talk to me a little bit just about your journey?
Totally.
And then what that becomes is, oh, Leslie has a conversation with me, now knows that I'm looking for my next gig. I'm top of mind. So maybe a job opens up in her company. Maybe a friend of a friend is hiring and she throws my name into the ring. So it's, I think that there are so many, it's not looking at it exactly of what can this person do for me, right?
And quote, worst case,
Yeah.
you walked away with like probably a lot of friendship and a lot of information
Totally.
about the industry, the current.
It's like going on a date. At least you get a free meal.
Yeah. Right? There you go.
Am I right?
Well, and I cannot remember who came up with this concept, but the idea of like, our initial sphere is our close sphere, but majority of the opportunities exist in that secondary sphere. Like the people that our initial sphere is the people that they actually know that we don't know. And so that is like that's the image that I always think about. We may not, and there's probably a lot of opportunity in this initial sphere, but it's that one that really kind of exponentially grows the amount of people that we can have contact with and connections with that allow for, what is the next opportunity or what is the next relationship or what is the next conversation that we need to be having, Anyway, who knew that we were going to go down a networking?
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, we might have gotten off to a little bit of a messy start today, but we redeemed.
We redeemed to
it.
And like looping it all back together, that like even doing this podcast and interviewing the people we do is its own kind of networking.
Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
And for listeners too, I've listened to this thing, I've heard now about this person in this business. I'm curious from what I heard. Now I want to try XYZ path, or I've heard where I can follow them. I am going to go follow them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really exciting.
We only connect you with the best of the best here.
Yeah. We only connect you with the best of the best. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're already like running out of time. I don't know how that happened.
Crazy.
When we get
It's
together.
insane. I know. I mean, things have been, I like want to wrap it up by saying like things have been really great.
Yeah.
I feel like we're learning and we're growing and the company is growing and we're engaging with more people. Sorry. I had to correct myself.
I believe in a thing called love.
And back to
And a messy finish. It wouldn't be.
Just trying so hard to not
Dirt
have
messy and messy.
sixth grader minds set.
It's the dance again.
See, we're so fun, everybody.
Yes.
Right.
Come work with us.
Yeah.
We're fun.
Oh, we're so fun. But it is, I think like the other couple of things that have been really great is like, what we were talking about earlier, Kathleen, is like we're working with some of these companies now and have these partnerships with larger organizations, which is definitely a path that we want to continue to go down, because those are a lot of fun for us. Not better than our individual clients, but just a different, way to engage.
And something that's occurring to me as you're saying this too is coming back to like, we are not an individual coach. We are a company. We are a collection of coaches. And how we talk about the benefits to people when that is the case, that it's like, actually, I'm like working with a client right now who's doing a job search. And I was like, hey, Libby, like, what should we do for this? I'm getting some advice. This is cool. This is helpful. And when it's a company that like we as a team meet regularly to discuss what's going on and to problem solve together and to just have that huge broad picture lens,
right?
That like me personally, I love my individual clients and I also love my company clients because it's just so fun to approach it as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that to say,
Season 3.
more to come, you guys.
We have exciting. We're not going to say any people's names. But we have exciting things coming out for season 3.
Yeah,
just the things that we've talked about. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting ride. So stay tuned, friends.
More messiness.
Subscribers.
Yes.
More messiness.
It's gonna get
more questionable words.
Yes.
Choices.
And then the reach out, I think, is like a big takeaway, that it's like reach out to the people on the episodes and also reach out to us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Even if it's not to say I want to do coaching, it can be about anything.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
Please.
Absolutely. We do welcome it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
We do.
Libby welcomes
I
it
do.
directly.
Yeah.
Come at her. All right.
Get into my DMs.
Season
Slide.
just slide
Slide
into
on
it.
in.
DMs.
And with that,
happy season 2,
Happy
my
season
friend.
2.
Love you guys so much.
Cheers.
And please remember to subscribe on all platforms, major platforms you pick.
Yeah.
You choose.
Subscribe to all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, subscribe to all of them. You can watch us on YouTube. You can just
Yes.
listen to us on Apple.
Yes.
Yeah, you do you.
Whatever works.
Well, we appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate you guys mostly.
same here.
Love y'all.
And I love you guys. Okay. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Waving bye.
Kathleen.